Hey everyone, I'm Apurva and welcome to the introduction of Canvas apps in PowerApps. Firstly, when you create a Canvas app, you're presented with a blank canvas, hence the name Canvas app. This is where you will drag and drop your components. Then on the extreme left, you have this left pane which has all these different elements. Let's start with tree view. Tree view in Power Apps is very important panel as it helps you to see all the screens and controls that you have on your application and also helps you navigate between them. For example, next we have is insert. Here we can see all the controls, all the components that we can add to a screen. For example, a button, a label or a date picker. Now, as soon as I add all these controls, they show up in the tree view in the exact order that I add them in. Basically, tree view helps you to see how controls are layered and displayed on the screen. Now see how label is at the bottom of all the items. So if I drag this button over the label, I won't be able to see the label that is beneath it. Similarly with date picker, if I drag it over the button, now I'm not able to see that button as well. So it really depends upon how you have layered them. Now if you want, you can also reorder them. Just right click on the component and select reorder. Then you can decide whether to bring them to front or send them to back. You can also perform the same action by using the component in the tree view. Just right click on them and select reorder. Next we have data. Here you can view all the data sources that you have already added or you can add new data source. You can select any tables from your dataverse or you can add connectors. Maybe your data is sitting in the SharePoint list or SQL Server or Excel sheet. Anywhere you need to connect, you can just select from here. Then you have this brush icon. Now let's say for instance you added a data source and then eventually you are not using that data source in your app and now you just want to get rid of all the extra data sources that you might have added. You can just simply click this brush and it will delete those extra data sources. Next we have is variables. So any global, any context variables that you create or even collections for that matter will show up here. Basically, anything that you create to store your data temporarily should show up here. I'm just going to create a random variable and a collection just so we can see something show up here. Now we have added a collection to our app, so we can also see the data source in our data section. Now, if we go back to variables, we can see the context variables we just created. Similarly, you can also view your collection with the whole table. Currently, I just have one row. Next we have is search. You can use this to search any variable, any component in your app. For example, I'm looking for a button and it lets me know it's on screen 1. Then we also have a search and replace functionality. Just enter in the name of the variable or component that you're trying to search and replace, and then you can use replace all to replace all at once. Now you also have certain filters here. You can match case or match the whole word, or you can match by collections, variable, screen as per your requirement. Next we have is media. So you can add any image, any audio or video to your application. Maybe you're trying to add the logo of your company, or maybe you're trying to add MP3 file or any loader to your screen. So any media files that you might need to add will go up here. Next we have is power automation. So any automation flow that you build that should get triggered by your app will go up here. And lastly, we have advanced tools. Now these tools are very important when you are testing or debugging your app. First, we have a live monitor. It helps you to track your interaction with the app. For example, if you click a button, what happens? How is the app responding after you click a button? What action is it performing? How much time is it taking to perform that particular action? So everything can be tracked. Next we have is tests. Now here you can create and define test cases and stimulate some real world scenarios. Basically it helps you to debug your application. Then if we go back to the tree view, you can click here to add any new screen. We have some templates available here. If you don't like anything from here, you can also add a blank screen and start from there. Then in the tree view, you also have the option to collapse and expand the screens and see all the controls on the screen. Then at the top, we have this ribbon. Most of the things here are very similar to what we just saw. So we'll cover each of them one by one. At the start, we have this undo and redo button. Then we have cut, copy, paste over here. Now this insert on the top and the one on the left side is the same thing. So you can drag and drop components from whichever menu you like, but it's exactly the same thing. Then we have data. Now the data over here and the data on the left pane is the same thing. You can add data sources from either of the menu. It's the same. Again, next we have is new screen, which is again the replica of the left pane. Doesn't matter where you add from. Next we have is theme. You can decide the theme of the app from here. Along with the background color, it is also changing how your components look like. For example, take a look at this button and the date picker. This blue is a classic Power App theme. I say classic because now we have modern controls, which is way different. But that's a topic for another time. Then we have background color. Here you can use any color to set the background of the app. We have the same thing here, but this time on the right side. But before that, notice how the properties pane on the right side changes as soon as I select any controls and how the screen properties shows up as soon as I click on the canvas. Now here the fill property is the same as the background color that we saw in the ribbon at the top. Then you can also add a background image. If you want, you can upload it or just use stock images. Similarly, we have the same thing on the right side. Now let's leave the upper ribbon for some time and let's focus on the right side pane, which is the properties pane. The moment you click on any control, the properties pane changes depending upon the control that you are selecting. For example, for date picker, we have date time zone. Similarly, if we select button, we will see text property over here. Now in the first tab, the display tab, we have all these cosmetic changes like the color, font, position, font size, font weight, border color. So basically all those things that will change the look and feel of your control. Next we have is an advanced tab. This tab allows you to configure more detailed or advanced properties. For example, we have this button. So what happens when you click on this button? What action does it perform? Or you can also set the visibility of the button. When is the button visible? So these are the properties that you can set. Then these properties that you see on the right side is also available in this drop down at the top. For example, look at this text property on the right. It is also available in this drop down here. Now focus on the bar in the middle where you see this fx. This is where you write the formulas. So for example, if I select this text, it shows me what is in my text property. And then again, the drop down is also changed. Now since I am editing the app, you can see at the top it says editing. Now with Power App's new update, which is co-presence, you can also have another person here. Let's see how that works. Now here I have opened the same app from another account. You can see this account has read-only access and it shows that I am editing this application. That's why I have read-only access. Now if I go back to my original account, I still have edit access and I can see Michael is also here reading the application. Now with Power App's new feature, which is co-authoring, you can also enable this feature by going into the setting, which allows you both to edit the app together. Let's also refresh the app for Michael to get the new co-authoring update. Now I'm in Michael's account. You can see at the top it says editing. I can also edit the app and add any buttons, controls that I want. This feature is really great when you want to save time and you are working on the app together. I would highly recommend not to work on the same page or on the same components. You might end up overriding other person's work, but this feature is really great. It also tells you exactly which component or which screen the person is working on. For example, take a look at this. Now it's time to say bye to Michael so we can really focus on one account, and let's go back to understanding Power Apps environment. Now let's say for instance you close this properties pane on the right side by mistake. You can always get it back by clicking this button at the top. Then we have this app checker which acts like a doctor that tells you what is wrong with your app. Maybe your app has errors, maybe performance issues or delegation warnings. It just tells you where to find them and how you can fix it. For example, see I have made a spelling mistake here. So both app checker and this cross shows me that I have made a mistake in my syntax. And then if I go to my app checker, it tells me exactly where I can find this mistake. Then moving on, we have this share option. You can simply enter the name of the user or group or even an email ID, set their permissions to either a user or a co-owner and share the app with them. Then we have play mode, which helps you stimulate the end user experience by allowing you to interact with the app as a user. You can use this to test your app in different devices. You can see how the UI will look, maybe in your iPad or maybe in your phone. And you can also change the orientation to look how it will look in the landscape or the portrait mode. And then you can also look at in the browser level. So depending upon how your end user is going to use the app, you can set the dimensions. And if you don't find a particular device, you can also and enter in the custom dimensions. Now instead of going back and forth in the play mode, you can also use Alt key on your keyboard for quick testing. Just press and hold your Alt key to turn your app into the play mode and then release it to go back into the edit mode. Now moving on, we have save button here. We can also save as and create a separate copy, or we can also download a copy to our system. Then finally we have publish app. So whatever changes you have done here so far, it won't be available to the end users unless you publish your application. For example, I'm going to show you this current app that I'm working on, how it is going to be in the play mode for our end users. As you can see, my app is blank right from where we started, but we have added certain controls and changed the color on the screen. So since we have not published it, it's not available to the end user. So I'm going to publish it right now. And then I've refreshed my app. As you can see, it shows that there is a new version coming up and it will let me know once it's available. Now it says the new app is available, and for me to use it, I just need to refresh it. So let's do that. And finally, we are able to see our exact app. So remember to publish your application once you're done with the development. Then at the bottom, we have the settings. This is same as the one in the upper ribbon. So let's take a look at that. First, we have some general settings like the name of the app, description. I can change the app icon. I can change its background color. If I want, I can also add my own image. Maybe your company's logo or something similar. Then we also have icon fill, so some basic cosmetic changes over here. Then at the bottom we have some more settings like autosave setting or offline setting, or we can also define how many rows to retrieve from server based connections. There are some more settings here at the bottom. Then let's move on to display. Here you can define the orientation of the app, whether it should be landscape or portrait. You can define the size. Maybe you're creating a mobile friendly app, so you can define certain dimensions that you want your app to be in. Then you can also connect your custom copilot here. Then in the updates, we have new tab. Here you can see all the updates that were recently released. Now by default, some of the updates are disabled. For example, if you take a look at my insert menu, all the controls are classic ones. But if I want, I can enable the modern controls and themes by coming here. And now you can see on the left side here, I have all the modern controls. Eventually, the new updates are available on all the apps by default. Also, the new updates are safe to use in production apps as they are highly stable and do not have any bugs. Then we have this preview tab. These features are almost ready for general use but are still being tested. So they might have bugs, limited support, and they could also change before the final release. So it's not recommended to use them in critical apps just yet. Then we have experimental. Now, these are early stage features that are still under development. Microsoft allows users to test them or provide feedback, but these can change significantly or they can even remove them. So it's only for testing purposes, they are not to be used for any production or any critical apps for that matter. And then finally, we have retired or deprecated features. Basically, these are the features that Microsoft has removed or is planning to remove them. So if you are using these features, you need to make sure to replace them with the available ones. Lastly, we have support where it gives you information about your environment. There's some documentation, some helpful links that will help you for your Power Apps journey. Then we also have the option to see the version history. Basically, it gives you information about the number of versions you have, version notes, who modified it, when was this modified, and so on. Then at the bottom, we have this virtual agent. This is like an in-app assistant to help you with your Power Apps journey. It can answer commonly asked questions. It can provide you links to some relevant documentation or resources. It can give you quick guidance on some Power Platform topics. So it's really great for beginners. Then here at the bottom, we have a breadcrumb navigation. Basically, it helps you keep track of the currently selected control and its parent hierarchy. Then this is just basically zoom in and out depending upon your preference. We also have Copilot available. So if you click on this icon at the top, it will start Copilot on the right side. Now, of course, you need to double check the answer that the Copilot is giving, whether it's correct. But it is able to do simple tasks like adding buttons, maybe changing buttons. You can change formats, you can add screens. You can also ask it what is a gallery. So it is able to perform certain actions. Of course, it's not able to perform any complex scenarios just yet, but who knows? And that's it. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe.